let's go ahead and dive right into it. It was actually great looking over some of your benchmarks and noticing that, considering that this is the first benchmark, like I feel as if students are in a really good place as far as like their writing skills and their mental ability to actually put their thoughts down onto paper. It's not perfect yet, but considering once again that it's our first benchmark, I feel like we've started at a really strong spot. So how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel good. Like I said, I know there's a gap, but we're gonna get to it. I need to find out my kinks and iron them out.
Cool deal. So let's take a look at the 3 exemplars that I've set in front of you, right? One's a high, one's a medium, one's a low, right? Take a look at your high, and I want you to take some time to actually analyze your high and compare them to your mediums and your lows. And I want you to be thinking to yourself, what are some of the gaps that I see missing? Like, what are some of the things that this high exemplar has that the middle or the lower exemplar is missing?
I can hit it just by reading a few. Okay, so what stands out in the high is that this student actually answered both parts of the question, and they gave evidence, which is good. They understand the concept and they understand the questions that I'm asking, so they got directly to the point. My middle one, they understand it, although they answered one part of the question, so they didn't read the actual question thoroughly. They didn't fully read it, or they may have forgot at some point that they're answering 2 questions. And then my low, they didn't answer the question. They didn't answer any of the questions, and the concept was kind of off. So I don't know if they don't understand it. I don't know what was going on, but they didn't answer any of the populations that they asked for.
Okay, so it sounds like you're saying your high answered all the parts of the question. Exactly how many parts of the question were there to actually answer?
There are 2 parts of the question. They're to describe and then they're to provide evidence. Okay,
so you have to describe 2 different populations, and then you have to you have to back up your claim with evidence, essentially. Your high actually did that, like in a few sentences, actually. Like, they described the impact of the population, and they actually used evidence from the chart on the other page to do that. Same with this one. The only thing is that he only gave an effect of 1 population, so I agree with you completely on that. And your low, actually, I feel as if they had a grasp of this whole entire understanding of that if you introduce a new animal into a habitat, that it could, or into an ecosystem, that it could affect its population. They didn't, however, answer it in a way of which the question was asking them.
Right.
So, looking at these 3 exemplars, let's go ahead and name it or punch it. What do you think is the gap? What do we need to be focused on for the remainder of this meeting?
My students actually need to start reading the question. They need to know what we're asking or what the question is asking. They need to, these buzzwords, I want them to focus on buzzwords. I want them to know what keywords they're asking, and maybe that will help them understand and know how many questions there are to answer.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you want to focus on students actually analyzing the question.
Yeah.
What's the question asking them to do? What are some keywords or buzzwords, as you call them, in the question, and making sure that they have
a clear understanding.
So making sure they have a clear understanding of what the question is asking them to do, and that they're actually doing all of those steps in their response.
Right.
So you're saying that it's not a misunderstanding, or it's not a gap in the knowledge that they possess. It seems as if it was a gap in them actually analyzing the question. Okay, so let's go ahead and punch it. So we're going to work on teaching students how to analyze questions, right?
Okay.
So if you take a look at the 3 exemplars, I want to give you some time to actually think about what's going to be the best way to teach this when we get in front of students. You can actually use my pen, and you can actually scribble on the bottom of your exemplars if you need to take notes. And just a heads up, we're going to practice what this looks like in a little while.
Okay. So I just made two points. I said that I would want them to focus on breaking the questions apart and underlining keywords. Maybe that works.
So I understand exactly where you're going at with it. So you're saying analyzing the question through the use of annotation?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So if we use that word that's already language that's common and familiar to them.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to call it annotating the question. A lot of times they hear teachers refer to annotating the text, but we're going to begin referring to it as annotating the question, so they get acclimated and accustomed to hearing that terminology as well too. So when we say we want to annotate the question, what are some of the annotation marks that you would actually use, or that you want to roll out to students when teaching them this?
One is to actually number the questions. Maybe that will help.
Okay, so make a list of it, so that way, like it's engraved in your memory, and that way you know what you want this annotation to look like when you begin to make your anchor chart.
Number questions,
and also even draw like a little picture on the side, because when you say number questions, like how specific do you want it to be? Do you want them to actually write a number 1 next to it and circle it, or do you just want it to be a number 1? Do you want it to be a Roman numeral? Like, really be specific with them, so that way it's normed across all of the students.
Okay, I think 1 with a circle around it, or 2 with a
Perfect.
circle around it. Yeah. And then as far as annotation, I don't want them to confuse annotation as we do with text. I just want them to annotate I just want them to annotate the one word or the key word. I don't want them to annotate a phrase. If that makes sense.
Gotcha. So yeah. So with a sentence being so short, like you really don't want them to have the whole entire thing annotated, right?
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. Right. So annotating keywords. Gotcha. Or underlining keywords.
Okay.
That little underline is going to be the annotation that we use for keywords, right?
Right.
And then also have in your mind some of the keywords that are worth annotating.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and then there was another issue about students not necessarily answering all the parts of the question. So how can we rectify that issue?
Maybe I can use, I'll think of a signal, a sign to separate the questions. Maybe a line to separate the questions, so they'll know. So
why don't you go ahead and write that down too? Because we're essentially creating an anchor chart that we're going to roll out to the students, right? So that little line is actually a type of annotation.
Okay. Should we call it a wall, maybe?
That's catchier, yeah.
Wall. Okay.
Much catchier than just calling it a line.
Separate questions. Okay.
Cool deal. And I think that if we kept the annotation simple, it's easier for them to process, right? Because they already are accustomed to other annotations and things of that nature. As a matter of fact, now that I'm thinking about it, instead of the underline, we could norm it a little bit closer to what some of the annotations in ELA look like, and we could call it a box. They actually box keywords, I believe.
That sounds
so. Let's call it a box. Instead of lines.
I like that idea. Okay.
So we have the wall, we have the box, and we have the numbers, right?
Yeah.
So walk me through what the numbers are again.
Okay, so the numbers are to actually number how many questions are being asked.
Cool deal. Walk me through the keywords.
The keywords, they will put a box around the keyword or the buzzword in each question.
And walk me through what the wall.
The wall will actually separate the question so they know where the new question starts. So once they finish maybe question 1, they'll know to look to the next wall.
Okay, cool deal. To answer, to start the next idea, the next start, right?
Right.
So now that we have this planned out, let's go on ahead and get up in front of the class. We're probably going to use something called a guided discourse in order to teach the students how to actually do this.
Okay.
So what that means is that you're going to actually get up and you're going to model what this looks like for the students, right?
Okay.
So let's go on ahead, pretend this is the board. You want to be within the camera frame, perfect.
Okay.
And give it a try.
Okay.
And make sure you speak a little bit louder for me.
Okay. Good morning, class. So yesterday we all took the benchmark, and Ms. Cuello noticed that we're having a bit of a problem actually reading the whole question. So Ms. Cuello came up with a few things, a few ways to help us read the question and understand what is being asked. So can someone please read the question that was asked on number 2? Jason. Thank you, Jason. Okay, can someone tell me how many questions was in this actual passage? I'm looking for a strong silent hand. James. There were 2 questions exactly. Can you read one of them for me?
So stop. So what you want him to be able to do is identify the first question, right? You want them to be you want them to be able to identify them in order. Okay. So start from that part and ask James to identify what is the question first asking you to do. Okay.
Okay, James, can you tell me the first question that is asked in this passage? Good job, James. Okay, now I'm looking for the second question that is asked in this passage. Jenny, can you read it for me? Good job, Jenny. So now that we know that there are 2 questions, I want to make sure that we understand where the questions start, and I'm thinking of ways, symbols that we can put in the questions to help us and help us remember what is being asked. So I have 3 simple symbols for us to remember. The first one is number questions. We're going to put the number 1, 2, 3, or however many questions, and we're going to put a small circle around it. Ms. Cuello did the first one. So, like the first question, describe how the increase of bull shark population impacts 2 other populations of the ecosystem. Can someone come up and put the number 1 with a circle around it to show me where this question starts?
Good, exactly. Where the question starts, exactly. Okay. So your number goes right above where the question starts. Okay. Good job. Yep.
The second symbol I have is a box. Now we're going to put a box around keywords. Instead of annotating, we're actually going to put a box around the words to help us know exactly what is being asked. Is there anyone that would like to take an educated guess on the keyword that is in the first question? John? Okay, John, come on up. John, you are on point. Increase is the very first keyword that is in the first question. But I see another one. Let me challenge you. Find the other keyword in this question. 2. So now that we know there are 2 other populations, we know that we cannot just answer 1 population. We have to answer 2 populations.
So make sure to tell them to put the box around it. As soon as you name that, tell them to put the box around it.
So you listed increase and 2. So now remember that we put the box. We don't just underline. We put a box around the 2 buzzwords. Okay, I have one more thing. Can someone show me where the second question starts? Remember, we're putting the number.
Yeah. So yeah. All is well. So right here is where you want to actually introduce them to the wall.
Yeah. Okay. So now that we're moving on to the next question, I want to separate these questions so we know exactly where the second question is starting. Is there someone that can show me where the second question starts? This time we're going to put a line, which we will call it a wall, to separate these 2 questions.
So stop right there and explain to them that the wall is going to show.
Good morning, Crawford College Prep. Teachers, if you have not taken attendance, please do so at this time. Again, teachers, if you have not taken attendance, please do so at this time.
So remember that the wall, to explain to them that the wall is going to show them where the other sentence ends and where the new sentence begins. Like, that's the terminology that you want to use when you're rolling it out. Okay.
So when we place this wall, this is where the first question ends, or where the question prior to it ends, and where the next question begins. So I'm looking for someone, a strong silent hand, to show me where the first question ends and where the second question begins. Troy, come on up and show me where this wall, remember a line to separate the 2 questions go. Exactly. So I think with these symbols, we will now know how to answer our questions. We have to number each question with a number in a circle. We have the box where we box each keyword, in which we box increase and 2. And then we have the wall to know where one question ends and where the next question begins.
Perfect. All right, so have a seat. So now that we have that squared away, I'm going to come in tomorrow and I'm going to give you some real-time coaching and some feedback in the moment, and I'm also going to give you some coaching in the form of a coaching log sent to you probably no later than tomorrow evening. Cool?
Cool.
All right then. Awesome. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.